This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here on the show. First question is from CTG Cement, who says, Q, the bad habits that the Browns have sunken into on the defensive side of the ball will obviously make it more difficult for Jim to turn around or do a full 180 from what it looked like last year. I know it's pretty far off now, but when the season does begin, what keys can we look for the first few games that will lend itself to that they begin to correct those flaws? Those flaws, like, you can't just get rid of those things by practice. Like, you have to get rid of those things through games, because you're not even going to know that certain bad habits exist or certain bad instincts are there until you're put in a situation in a game to act on those bad habits. So it's gonna be a process that's just gonna have to happen over the course of a year. That doesn't mean that the defense can't be good, but it does mean to me that I'm gonna be a little bit more cautious when talking about how good this defense can be, because I know that there's going to be a lot of change and a lot of turnover from this defense when it comes to some of the coaches and some of the formations and some of the ideologies that we're switching out. Also, you have some new players being mixed in there. There's just a lot of moving parts for this defense this year that I don't think it's realistic to expect them to be one of the best in the NFL. That being said, I still think they should be a good unit, but when we're talking about elite, I don't think they should be elite. The next question comes from D, who says, what's up, Mr. Carey? I truly enjoy your breakdown of the world's team. Phenomenal content. So I was wondering if you had a prediction of wins and losses for the Browns this season. 11-6 is 11-6 a realistic prediction? Because I believe it is, but others say I'm too optimistic. Help me understand. Keep up the great coverage. I don't think 11-6 is crazy. I think the Browns should shoot for a range of anywhere between 10 and 12 wins. I think that's very realistic for this team. We'll see if they get it. I think quarterback play has a lot to do with it. I think the defense just going from awful to decent would have made last year's team a 9-win team. And then you add in Deshaun Watson. If he plays to the level that he can get to, that's another couple wins. So you're talking about a team just making those jumps because of those reasons. I think that's completely within a normal thought process of how they can get there. All right, the next question, it's a long one from Brandon, who says, hey Q, for the past couple of years, there seems to be a reoccurring theme among fans that Stefanski needs to delegate offensive play calling to Van Pelt. I don't know this, but I would think that there is a fair amount of collaboration on what plays are being called, regardless of who's actually calling the plays. Is this not the case? And has he been, and has play calling specifically on the offense been a problem of itself, or is it more due to the execution? Sorry for asking lengthy questions, but thanks, man. Again, no, this is probably one of the best questions I've gotten all year. And Brandon, I would agree with you. That's the thing I think people overlook. And I think when people criticize the play calling, they're criticizing the result, not necessarily if the play call made sense. Now, are there times where I don't agree with the play call? Sure. But that doesn't mean that play call was wrong just because I don't agree with it or some fans at home don't agree with it. It's more up to how do the players on that offense feel about the play calling. If they're fine with it, then ultimately the play calling's fine. And you brought up another point. People will call for Alex Van Pelt to call these plays as if Alex Van Pelt has no say in what plays are on the sheet. And for those of you who don't know, what standard NFL practice is on the offensive side of the ball is The offensive coordinator and the head coach work together on what plays are on that call sheet that a coach has. So no, is Van Pelt calling the specific play? No. But he had a hand in every single play that you see get called, and he approved every play that is called out there. So if you don't like a play that's out there, it's on Van Pelt too. Also, I think people are being naive when they don't. If you don't think that Van Pelt doesn't get asked his opinion on a play call in very serious situations, like yes, Stefanski calls the plays, and part of the reason why Stefanski calls the plays is so he could be accountable for the offense. It's kind of funny to me that people think that like a good leadership trait for Stefanski would be to delegate the play calling to Van Pelt. And then when Van Pelt calls a bad play, what's Stefanski going to do? Just blame his underling for making a decision he didn't like? If you are a strong head coach, if you believe that you're good at your job, you should have the confidence to be able to be accountable for whatever decision gets made. But funnily enough, a lot of people who call for Stefanski not to call the plays anymore are actually advocating for something that's going to leave Stefanski room to not be accountable if something goes wrong. Fact is that Stefanski calls the plays, but Van Pelt has a very, very large say in what gets called, when it gets called, and when it's on the sheet. And again, if you're not familiar with the play sheet, there's a video by QB Film School, JT O'Sullivan, who played in the NFL, who breaks down what play sheets are. And what play sheets basically are, there are situations on each play sheet. 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, 2nd and short, 3rd and short. And then underneath all of those situations, you have a handful of plays. So Kevin's not just pulling out something out the middle of the playbook on 3rd and short. He's calling a play on 3rd and short that the entire offensive staff collaborated and said, hey, if we get to 3rd and short, we're fine with any of these 5 plays being called at any time in this situation. That's what it is. So for Stefanski to hand that sheet to Van Pelt would just be a way for him not to be accountable for it. Because now if a bad decision gets made, oh, it's Van Pelt's fault. It's not my fault. I think he's being a leader by calling the plays because now he's accountable for the offense. If they do something you don't like and it doesn't work out the way you want it, you're going to blame him instead of Van Pelt. That's the way it should be because he's the head coach. And not only a head coach, he's an offensive specialist who's the head coach. But so many people get caught up in thinking that like it's magic, that play calling is magic. And it's this thing that people are just doing off vibes, and it's not. He's just picking from a sheet where all the situations have been talked about throughout the week by every coach. And if it's 3rd and short, they got 5 3rd and short plays they're going to call. If it's 3rd and long, they got 5 3rd and long plays they're going to call. If it's 2nd and long, they got a bunch of 2nd and long plays they're going to call. That's how the play calling works. So acting as if Van Pelt has no say in the play calling, sometimes really grinds my gears because it's the opposite of how it works. He has a huge say in it because he has a huge say in what goes on that sheet as the offensive coordinator. Ashton says here, hey, Q, is there a 3 1,000-yard receivers possible in this season? Also, what should the Browns do to prepare for the Bengals? I mean, there's not much you can do that you haven't done before when it comes to preparing for the Bengals. So they're just going to have to try their best to contain Joe Burrow and their wide receivers. But 3 1,000-yard wide receivers, no, that's not possible. I don't know if that's ever happened before, but I would doubt that it happens often. Browns receiving core is not strong enough to get 3 1,000-yard wide receivers, and also you just don't need to throw the ball that much that you're going to have 3 1,000-yard wide receivers. Chad says, hey, Q, how patient do you think the Browns will be with Cade York if he struggles early in the season? I would hope they're not that patient. Again, I know we drafted Cade York and people believe in him and want him to go through his growing pains. But this team is not when you're in win now mode, you're not in let's go through our kicker's growing pains mode. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if he can't make extra points in under 40-yard field goals, he's going to be gone by week 5. So that's just the rules. You know, I don't need a kicker who's gonna make 60-yard field goals. It's cool that he can, but if you can make 40-yard field goals consistently and your extra points and not hurt this team, if you could be a net neutral to this team, then that's what I want from a kicker. It's great to have a kicker who could be a positive to the team, but I damn sure am not going to risk having a kicker who's going to be a negative to a team when I could get somebody who could be a net neutral off the street, which is make your 40-yard field goals and make your extra points. If he can't do those two things, he got to go. He's got to go. This team's not in the place where they can be patient with that. They're trying to win now. We're not in a place like that. Alexia says, I expect the Browns to be good this year, at least second in our division. But if we implode again, miss the playoffs, what do you expect to happen to this team next? Oh, it's going to be a fire sale. It's going to be a fire sale. A lot of money in this team. If they disappoint and miss the playoffs again, I would be upset, but I couldn't even really blame if that triggered a bit of a change here. Matt the Wit says, hey, Q. And again, hold on, let me go back. It also matters how it happens. Like, if it happens because there was just like a bunch of injuries, okay, whatever, nobody cares. But if everybody's healthy and we just stink, then yeah, that's going to trigger some changes. All right. Matt the Wit says, hey, Q, have you seen Messi's new MLS contract where he basically gets a cut of revenue? Do you think the Bengals or another team with a rookie star quarterback could do something similar for Burrow, give him 1 or 2? No, you can't do that in NFL because the CBA exists. And the CBA means that you can't just make under the table deals like that with the player where you're undercutting the salary cap to give a player money on the side. And the reason that is because the owners don't want other owners doing that as a way to get around the salary cap. Now, if if you wanted your quarterback to be your coach but not play on the team, you could do that. But an active player, I do not believe you could give him 1 or 2% of team revenue. That is 100% illegal. I think that's why the Miami Dolphins, or part of why the Miami Dolphins lost their draft pick, because they were trying to work out some kind of deal like that. But yeah, that's not allowed. It's in the CBA, and that's because the owners don't want other owners to do that. So yeah, that just can't happen. And the NFL's just at a point where you can't do that. You know what I mean? You can't give away 2-3% of your team to a quarterback just because you want him there. The MLS can do that with Messi because Messi is bigger than the MLS. More people know about Messi as a soccer player than follow a specific MLS team. You know what I mean? Like, you might be thinking about getting MLS tickets because Messi's there. He's bigger than the league. No quarterback's bigger than the NFL. It's just the NFL's a massive beast. Nobody's ever going to be in a position to demand that, even if you could. Ace Solomon says, how likely are the Browns in bringing back Dion Jones the longer he lingers in free agency? Taki is still recovering from injury, so having depth at the wheel wouldn't hurt with the Browns, except for in their pockets, which leads me to my following question. What do you think the pay range is for Dion looking compared? He's going to be cheap. Browns are currently projected at having $17 million at their disposal. The most of that $17 million is going to go into next year for a cap rollover to pay for some of Deshaun Watson's contract. So I don't expect them to spend that there. But as far as Dion Jones, yeah, if they can get him cheap, they'll probably go there. They might even bring back like a Malcolm Smith or just go in a new direction. Or maybe even bring back Reggie Ragland. I thought he was decent when he was here. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they go somewhere, but it's probably going to be vet men. Pee Wee's Burnt Pizza says, what is your take on all the players getting suspended for gambling? Why do you think players are ignoring said warnings? Now, I don't really have that much of an opinion on gambling either way. I don't gamble. It's never really appealed to me. I've been to Vegas multiple times and I've never really felt the urge to gamble. Like, it's not something that I struggle with or I have any relevant experience in. What I will say though is, regardless of whatever the vice is, if somebody is telling you and clearly spells out to you that doing this thing can ruin your career, and you decide to still do it, in most cases, to me, that would indicate that there is a problem with that person's ability to control their behavior when it comes to that thing. Also, and I know that morally and socially, gambling is not seen as bad as half the other stuff that NFL players get caught doing. So when you have to suspend a player strongly for gambling, a lot of people, get up in arms and they play the hypocrisy game about, hey, why can he do this, but you can't gamble? And that there is some validness to that argument, but people forget the NFL is not the government. And why do I say that is because, yes, the government has a bit of an obligation to suspend people and punish people based on the moral objectivity or the moral outrage that society is going to have about that given crime. The NFL suspends people to protect the NFL. That's not like a conspiracy. There's literally what the NFL, when you get suspended by the league, it is because conduct detrimental to the league. To the league, and this is very cynical, but it's true, bad behavior outside the field, no matter how heinous, that's not as damaging to the NFL as gambling, because gambling, when their players are gambling or caught gambling, that's going to really affect their bottom line and the trust in that product. Again, the NFL is not suspending people for moral reasons. They're not the government. That's the government's job. The NFL is suspending people to protect itself. So that's why they have to be so hard on gambling, because if people are going to gamble on this, they have to trust that this thing is not compromised. So they have to come in really hard on people who are choosing to gamble. Also, if you are a player and you know that the NFL is going to come down hard on you for any type of gambling, and we're past the point to where nobody knows about this kind of stuff. Like there have been like 6 cases in the news before this one, and you do decide to gamble. I'm sorry, that indicates that there probably is a bigger problem there than what people are willing to admit or what we know publicly. Because if I am told I can't, let's do something innocuous. I like real fruit bars. You ever get those things at like Target? They have like the real pieces of strawberry in them. They're nice and sugary and they taste good and they don't have that many calories. I like those things, right? But if I were told I could not collect revenue for my job because if I have more than 2 of those fruit bars, then guess what? I'm only having none of them. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even a question to me. But if I know the risk and I still decide to eat the extra amount of fruit bars, and I know this is a convoluted metaphor at this point, but at that point, I got a problem, dog. Like it's deeper than the actual thing that we're talking about. There clearly is a problem if you're willing to take outrageous consequences for something that is so avoidable, like gambling $300 on a college football game. Like that tells me there's a bigger problem there, that you decided to make that decision with all of the facts available to you. Like this is something that players talk about within locker rooms. Like there's no way nobody knows at this point. So that's what I'm saying. Like I get why people would say, hey, it's just gambling. Everybody does it. And that's cool. Everybody else can gamble because it's understood that nobody who messes with the result in the NFL is gambling. That's why you can gamble on it. But once people feel like the people in the sport are gambling, nobody trusts anything and it falls apart. So if you want to be a gambler, but you can't be a gambler and a football player. That's not going to happen. You can't do both. We all kind of understand that. We're taught about Pete Rose at a very young age. So like, I don't know what to do with that. Again, I don't know how addicting gambling can be because I just don't have the urge. And I'm not trying to say it's an easy thing to kick. I'm saying if your urge to do something is so strong that you're willing to accept what you know to be outrageous consequences for it, that means you need help, like serious help from professionals, because there's a problem with your decision-making process that this thing is doing something to you mentally to where you're not able to control yourself when you know you should be able to control yourself. Like that would indicate to me that somebody is in need of some real help on the mental side, and that maybe this is a little bit more drastic than what people are arguing about on the surface. So that's my thoughts on that. Sorry I got so long and convoluted, but that's my thoughts on that. William says, how do you view Taki Taki? He's a starter who has grown with this team and has become a better linebacker. I like Taki Taki. He's not a great line. He's not a linebacker that's going to be like one of the greats, but he's fine. I like him a lot. But thank you guys for asking questions. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.